Hello guys, welcome back to our channel. In our previous video, we covered what is a consumer, we saw its syntax and applications. We also saw some examples where we can use the consumer effectively. In case you have missed it, click on the I button mentioned on the top of your screen. Coming back to this video, in this video, we will cover some of the default and static methods that are present inside the consumer interface. We will also see what is consumer joining and consumer chaining. And at last, we'll see the difference between predicate, function, and consumer and where we should use which of these interface. So before wasting any time, let's get started. So the consumer interface contains more methods than only the accept method. But the rest of the methods are default or static methods, which you don't have to forcefully implement. Consumer interface in Java contains only one default method, that is and then. Apart from the default method, it does not contain any static method, which means there are no static methods inside the consumer. Let's understand the purpose of each default method of the consumer interface. The one and only default method of the consumer is and then method. The syntax of and the method looks like default consumer and then consumer after. As per the official Java docs, this method returns a composed consumer that performs in sequence this operation followed by the after operations. So here you can see that this method takes a consumer as an input and returns a new consumer which will be executed after the given consumer. All these default methods are used for consumer chaining. Now what do we mean by chaining and joining? So, joining means combining two or more consumer to form a single consumer. So let's consider a simple example to understand this. Let's say I have a consumer C1 to print two properties of the employee, and then I have another consumer C2 to print the remaining properties of the employee. So if I use and then method, then consumer joining will look like C1 and then C2. And these two will combine together, and first two properties of the employee will get printed and then the rest of the properties will get printed to the console. So let's try to implement the same solution to get the better understanding of the consumer joining. So consider this example where we have a list of employees like this. List of employees equals to new array list of employees, and we have a consumer C1 to print only two properties of the employees, that is ID and name. Then we have a consumer C2 that will print the remaining properties of the employee, that is designation and salary. So let's look at this code into the actions. So in this example, again, we will take the same employee class which has these properties, and we'll use this class in our example for understanding the consumer chaining. Then we have a class consumer chaining which has a main method inside it, and inside the main method I'll have a list of employees. But before that, let me add the import statement that would be required. Now let me add the list of the employees. Now again we'll add some values to this list. Then we'll have a consumer C1 which will print the properties of employee. This will print only two properties of the employees, that is ID and name. Now we'll write another consumer to print the remaining properties of the employees. So we have a consumer C2 which will print all the remaining properties, and to chain the consumers we'll use and then method. So we'll write C1 and then C2. So we'll write for every employee we will call C1 and then C2 dot accept E. So let us save this code and let us compile it. So let me compile and let me run it. So now all the properties are printed by using the combination of both the consumers. So this was the consumer chaining. Now let's look at some of the differences between predicate, function, and consumer. So, whenever there is a requirement to perform some conditional check, we should choose predicate. And whenever there is a requirement to perform certain operation and return some result, then we should go for function. Whenever there is a requirement to consume some input, perform some operation but does not return any value, then we should choose consumer. A predicate can take only one input type parameter, which will be acting as the input for the predicate. So predicate is written as predicate of t. When it comes to function, it can take two type of parameters, out of which the first one will be the input parameter and the second one will be the return type. So a typical function is written as function t comma r. When it comes to consumer, it can take only one type parameter, which will serve as the input type parameter for the consumer. So consumer is written as consumer of t. The abstract method of predicate is test for testing some Boolean condition. The abstract method of function is apply to apply some processing. Then the accept method of consumer is accept that will consume some value. So the syntax of test method is boolean test t comma t. The syntax of apply method is r apply t, and the syntax of accept method is void accept t. Notice the return type of predicate is always boolean. Function can return any type, and the return type of a consumer is always void. So I hope now you have understood the consumer functional interface, where should we use it, and what are the default and static methods that comes up with the consumer, and how we can use these default methods for consumer chaining. In our upcoming video, we will learn another important functional interface, that is supplier. I hope you like this video, so hit the like button, share and subscribe to our channel. If you have any doubts, do connect us in the comment section. Stay tuned for yet another videos on Java 8. Till then, take care, bye bye, and thank you for watching.